Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, the shillingest show of them all. Help support our copium-filled antics by liking this video and subscribing for more content. So we begin the show with Wrath of the Lich King Classic, which is suffering from its own early successes. I wasn't interested in playing Wrath. I was like, nah, I've been there, done that. Right, I'll keep my memories in the past, but then there's a pretty radical Proto-Drake mount that you can unlock, and all you have to do is complete the Death Knight starting experience in Wrath Classic right now. If you've already done so, great, but if you haven't, you can create a Death Knight on one of the regular realms, not the fresh start servers, but the regular realms, and then just get to work. Just make sure to choose a realm that doesn't have a multi-hour queue, which has been a bit of a problem. At first glance, it's history repeating itself, just like the launch of WoW Classic, where you had tons of players trying to get in, not enough realms to support them. However, that's not exactly true in this case. It's actually a few select realms or mega realms that are heavily impacted, while the others are just, happily trugging along. It's actually a very complicated situation. Multiple blue posts have given extensive explanations with the why and how. Unfortunately, Brian Birmingham is not Yoshi P, and from the looks in the comments, there aren't a lot of folks interested in dev communications. They just want to play with their friends and guildmates. I'll summarize. There are a few realms where there are just way too many active characters to the point where realms are at, straight up max capacity. Raising the cap risks destabilizing the realms, causing disconnects and lag that's already happening because, again, they're at the cap. Layering doesn't help because that only influences who players will see when they're already on in the game. It doesn't, and it never has, raised the cap. The hardware and software to support even larger realms doesn't yet exist. So here's a loose example of just how we got here. WoW Classic launched once upon a time, and let's say 50,000 players are always trying to play on a given realm, but the server can only hold maybe 40,000 players. Early on, that means a 10,000 player queue, which sucks. But then time passes, there's attrition, people quit playing, people start playing, they server transfer in and out, some people just kind of take breaks or whatnot, and by the end, when the dust clears in WoW Classic, let's say that there's going to be 30,000 players on concurrently, and never mind the whole faction balance thing. But with 30k concurrent players on a 40k server, you can consider that realm to be very populated and healthy and, I guess, stable. But then BC Classic launches, and all the people who had ever played on this given realm through Classic's lifetime, they all come back. And this is on top of the regular concurrent players that have been on. So we have friends and family members who have established themselves on these servers, or they have attachments, or there are those who just want to be part of the busy realm. And now we're moving to Wrath of the Lich King, which is statistically WoW's most popular expansion. I have to remind folks that this is not a game-wide problem, but a very big problem that is limited to specific realms. There are a lot of players who are just playing fine on their smaller realms. There are teams and guilds who are totally cool with being on a smaller realm because they'd rather not deal with having to queue up via remote desktop hours before their drive home from work, and then maybe they'll be able to get on. Unfortunately, there are no good solutions, and Blizzard's going through with some of them. On these very impacted realms, transfers and new character creation are just shut down, which threatens to separate players who were not able to get onto these realms sooner and presenting them with some difficult choices. Meanwhile, free transfers continue to be offered off of these realms, and according to the WoW team, people are taking up the offer, but it's kind of a slow bleed. No doubt there are people waiting on the sidelines for other people to leave so they can have a reasonable queue time later. That's kind of the WoW team's hope, that the people who are less attached to these mega realms would be more inclined to go. But even those players are hesitant to leave, knowing that after a few months this traffic is going to die down as it always does, and they don't want to end up on a dead realm. And Wrath Classic is just in the pre-expansion patch. It launches on the 26th, only a few weeks, and this problem is only going to get worse with no good solution in place. Again, more layers aren't an actual solution. More servers wouldn't do anything because the point is all these people want to be on the same realm. Raising caps has already been done, and they're at their technological limit. Free transfers are a reason to go, but it's also a reason for others to hold out and stay. I like being that kind of armchair developer with tons of ideas, but I've got nothing. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'm not going to shut you down, I'm just interested in listening, and maybe we can have a conversation in the comments. In a surprise but not really surprise move, the pre-expansion patch for WoW Dragonflight is now on the PTR servers. Fun fact, you can sit in your Wrath queue and hop into the PTR at the same time. Without taking into account the Shadowlands delay, the timeline of this release fits with previous expansions. It's a little bit shorter of a test cycle because the beta is still chugging alongside it. PTR starting this week fits a schedule of the patch going live towards the end of October and a release date in late November. However, with the introduction of a new class, we can refer to Legion that had a longer pre-expansion period, so there's still room for Dragonflight to be pushed back to mid-December, but at this stage of development, whatever the date is, leaked or not, it's already planned. As of right now, Drag3 Evokers aren't testable and probably won't be before the patch goes live, whenever that is. If they are a pre-order bonus, it'd kind of defeat the purpose if players can hop onto Evokers on the PTR. Then again, it's not like progressing there will give you a head start, but y'all can debate the ethics of that over in the comments. Whatever the case, the PTR has a lot to check out, notably all the talent revamps coming to existing classes. This is a big deal. It's the biggest overall class revamp since talents were taken away from us like 10 years ago this month even. So it's going to be important to get as many people's input on this as possible, not just the 1% of the 1%. Okay, I think that's not bad. It only took me this many takes, okay? I encourage all of you to hop onto the PTR and give it a spin. Couple of things to note, you can change talents without needing to be in a rest area or use a Tome of the something or other. You just need to be out of combat and not have talent related abilities on cooldown. You can save up to 10 loadouts total. They're shared across your 2 to 4 specializations, but I'm pretty sure that someone's going to develop an add-on for that real quick. You can also share and import talents. I hope that they add a feature that creates a clickable chat link that can easily be copy-pasted instead of gibberish. And there will be takes on the talent trees, and they are going to change pretty much every week, like they changed as I wrote this video. Just in this build, we've seen Warlock's spell lock ability go back to the Fell Hunter. We're seeing Binding Shot, a unique root for hunters, be treated like other root abilities, before another announcement said that it's changing the root to a stun. Also, a neat new talent is coming for casters and healers in PvP. Precognition is a PvP talent that makes it so if the user is kicked or trying to be kicked, but they weren't casting, they then get a short immunity to crowd control. It's a great way to reward baiting the enemy into using their interrupts. And there's still a lot of aggressive tuning happening in this beta phase. What I'm getting from talent trees is, one part, yes, there are going to be cookie cutter specs that will be shoved down our throats, and there will be awful builds like, I don't know, having no defensive cooldowns as a tank. Brilliant. And one part, hey, is there actually anything new being added to my class? No? What gives, Blizz? All of these are true to a degree. What I really value here with talent points is that I can play with these different combinations to make something fun for me. Now I can look up a guide or input someone else's build if I want to be told what to do. That's still okay. But these talent points let me play in a way that was a little bit oversimplified in talent rows, and now everyone's got a chance to do this again. Talents are one of the big worries that I have in Dragonflight and WoW going forward. I said it on this show last week, and I'm sorry for being a broken record, but with the PTR up, this can't be understated. Think about Shadowlands and the drama over the past 2 years about balancing classes and covenant abilities and conduits and legendaries and set bonuses. Just about all of that now is contained in a single menu. Outside of the usual patches and hotfixes and set bonuses to give these a bit more flavor, this is it. For now, forget what others are saying about classes, forget the tier lists and the deep dives. I'm shilling for the PTR right now, and I'm encouraging you to take a look for yourself. And take a look at some of the other snazzy upgrades like the UI changes. Ooh, right? Window frames are being smoothed out a little bit. Player frames have finally changed to the concept that we saw in the first Dragonflight announcement. I mean, look at how adorable that is. It's like I'm sleeping. The loot window has changed to this smooth sliding notification that is very 2017, very nice. And as usual, more options are being added to the edit mode. All of this is testable in the PTR, so you can start doing your LVUI comparisons and make your own choice with what you want to do in the future. The beta, same as the player test run, included a good number of class changes across the board, but big moves for druids, priests, and warriors. And I want to point out, and this is me being concerned about talents again, that not all classes, or at least the class trees, they're not all being created equally. We'd be here all day if I got really specific, but I'm going to throw up this little chart that shows how many different selections are available per class in each section of their class tree. In case you're not familiar, there are 3 tiers of sorts in the trees, where you have to spend a number of points in the first tree before moving down to the second and then to the third. Notice that shaman have the most choices for them, 60 talents, while monks take the bottom spot at only 45. This is a weird delta to have, considering monks have 3 roles while shaman have 2, but I'm grossly oversimplifying class design. These numbers don't need to be too perfectly even, and I don't want shaman to lose things, I just think everyone should gain a little bit more. This week's build was, more than anything, the fleshing out of things and fixing some horrendous bugs that made testing / practice / early previews much more difficult. This week we got our first look at enchanters, which finally rounds out all of Dragonflight's professions. Throughout next week, I'm going to try out kind of a short series of videos for the purpose of discussion. Who were the winners and losers of professions in Dragonflight? I'm not going to have, direct answers, but I'm going to share my knowledge and perspective, and I hope that you'll join me for some discussion. We're getting a better picture of what the 4th pillar of WoW, world content, is going to be like in Dragonflight. It's made up of 2 parts, and I've got one word to describe them both: grindy. So we gotta put this in some perspective, right? In Dragonflight, if you want to raid, go raid, all right? Wait for the season to start, go raid. If you want to do PvP, go PvP. If you want to do dungeons, you can queue up or, just start running your ass over there. And if you want to gear, there are steps you can take in each of those paths. Endgame is there. It awaits. There's no side grind, there's no prereqs or must-dos before you do whatever, outside of gear and setting up talent points. You heard me say all of this before, and you'll hear it more in the future. But world content and professions, which go hand in hand in Dragonflight, it's a journey, it's an odyssey. I've talked my head off on professions, and I'll share my concerns about those in a little bit, but let's talk up some world content. It starts with leveling, obviously, and it builds with reputation by completing side quests, main quests, world quests, rares, and other events. It fills up with renown rewards that unlock activities that give more for you to discover and collect. You're going to start seeing crap on the ground for you to pick up that you can turn in for reputation and rewards. You obtain Dragon Isle supplies used to upgrade these activities and buy account-wide cosmetics. As far as I've tested, as you unlock these activities and perks and cosmetics, just about all of it will be unlocked for your alts as well, and it's expected that they're going to gather resources that they need to get for themselves at an increased rate. Special elite areas and world events offer more reward loops, and they don't seem to be entirely interconnected. You can just do things however you like separately. Gear comes from working your way past the world quest rewards and into these zone activities that drop items and currencies to use on vendors. I mentioned it a few times, there's this place called the Cobalt Assembly somewhere in the Azure Span that seems to involve a lot of fighting. There's like this weird talent tree, there are 2 kinds of reputation you can get, but I think it's redundant, I think it's going to get dropped down to 1, and the rewards are pretty much entirely cosmetic based. I covered zone events in a different video, and it happened to overlap with this Cobalt Assembly place, so maybe it's the same thing, maybe it's a coincidence. Events happen in every zone, and eventually we might see multiple small zone progression paths that ultimately makes us really strong during these events. There's no mandatory order that everyone's got to follow in order to succeed. Now I know that I'm being very vague, I'm being very non-specific about this, but there's still a lot that we don't know, and what I do know would take way too long to explain, and it would probably change in the future. I'm going to conclude this part by saying that you can work on whatever you want, as much as you want, and it's going to be highly rewarding whichever way you go. Like, imagine the beginning of Shadowlands, but you could be part of every covenant all at once, and upgrading the Covenant Sanctum only takes like a fraction of the effort. It's presented as At least in the beta right now, it's presented as very overwhelming because there are all these different directions that I can go. The turbo gamer in me tells me to do it all, right? But the more reasonable side of me says, I gotta go to sleep sometime. I have a feeling that by the time all of this goes live, like it or not, something is going to be added, not exactly time gating, but something is going to be added to ease us into these features a bit. And it's because there's less of this go, go, go mentality. We're not pounding away at Tuskar fishing so we can get into mythic raids. We're not trying to power through this or that to get to endgame. These activities, this is endgame for people who want this content. And if this isn't endgame for you, well, the big three is right over there, and the door is swung right open. Now, I hate to be a nag, but I gotta do it. This build has not introduced crafting orders for professions, and this is the single biggest thing about Dragonflight outside of raids that has yet to be tested. It's important because it may give players access to mythic crafted gear. Spoiler alert, the process to do it is going to take a very long time before someone can make a perfect mythic piece of gear. I almost predict that it's going to be hard to find anyone who can make it until well into Season 1, maybe towards the middle of it. But crafting orders are going to be a new lane for redistribution of gold, and all it takes is a dedicated player with the skills. What if I happen to be one of the first people in the region to be able to make the highest quality two-handed sword with the exact stats that everybody wants? How much would a player offer to me with their materials, including the bind-on pickup materials, to make a pair of those swords? Probably a lot. But then what if I heard of someone who can make the highest grade plate helmet and I wanted that for myself? How much would I pay them, knowing that they would need to use their bind-on pickup materials that I don't have? Obviously, that's going to be more than what I get from making them swords, but here's the cool thing. I could just keep making those swords as long as there are clients who will put up a request to me, because they're providing everything. I have the skill that they don't have. So yeah, I'll eventually be able to buy the things that I want as long as I keep doing my work and then using my gold to get, well, the things that I want. And I want to make this point clear. Crafting orders enable professions to be gear progression, I guess. Some of you may disagree with the merits though. Some of you may say, well, casual work should give casual gear, and that gold as a path to best in slot is tantamount to pay to win, and it's wrong. Of course, some may respond to that and be like, well, maybe you need to learn how to make gold, you filthy casual, but as someone who does a little bit of both, I'd rather not take sides. The way I'm looking at this, it's just like a new way of gearing is being met with massive resistance. Like badge gear, legendaries that everyone can get via questline. Ugh, that's like socialism, right? Weekly time-walking mythic dungeon event gear, the Great Vault. Oh, that's literal welfare. There's ongoing discussion about Mythic Plus versus raid gearing. Folks, we're on the verge of entering a new era. So, back to reality here, it's unnerving that crafting orders aren't testable. This puts professions in a very precarious position. Historically, the things that get tested last get tested worst. We've seen it with Azerite gear, we've seen it with conduits. And here's what we do know, partially thanks to some dialogue, whoop-de-doo. Crafting orders can be posted on the public market, offered within guild or directly as long as you know the name of the crafter and the server that they're on. You can only fill a number of orders per day. We don't know how many though. We don't know if guild or direct orders count, and we don't know exactly what, if anything, that you get for fulfilling public crafting orders, or even private ones or guild ones. According to this dialogue, if an order is about to expire, it won't count against the daily limit. So if there's an order that you see and want to fulfill but you can't, check back before it expires, and hopefully someone else won't have already snatched it up. And that's about it so far. Without clear knowledge, we don't know if mythic crafting is only going to be for mythic level players, or if crafters are going to feel compelled to complete the maximum amount of crafting orders every day, or risk falling behind in the tech race, because yes, there is going to be a race to get exclusive crafts before anyone else. And that's exciting in a way because a bona fide, mostly non-instanced endgame is coming our way. And if you don't care about it, you can entirely ignore it. And that's the show. I know today's show might have felt like a repeat of earlier statements, but I'm sorry folks, but it's just getting harder and harder to understate my excitement, or just how different Dragonflight is from Shadowlands. Maybe that's a low bar, but I can't help but be honest about that. It's just so weird to say that even after Shadowlands, Dragonflight is adding so much to the game, as in cosmetics and collectibles, that you can decide to totally ignore. And it's not going to stop you from getting Keystone Hero. In fact, you can do that first and then vibe for the rest of the season, plugging away at renowned stuff and unlocking cosmetics. So let's wrap it up with a huge thanks to our friends over at Twitch for a barrage of gifted subs. Thank you very much. I would love for more folks to join us for a chat too. Coffee with Soul happens Tuesdays through Thursdays, starting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Also, thanks to our beloved patrons, including a new friend. Thank you very, very much, Crystal, for your generosity. And let's not forget you, viewer, for making it to the end. You contributed to the algorithm, and that helps a lot more than you think. Next week, I hope to have more renowned stuff unlocked to give an even clearer picture of what endgame feels like. And as I mentioned, I want to have a good long discussion about professions on an individual level. What seems to be the most fun and profitable? Who's going to win early on and in the long run? It should be fun, and I hope that you'll check back in. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more content, and let's grow this channel together. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy. Class revamp since talents were taken away from us years ago, this month in fact. So it's going to be important to get as many people's input on this as possible, not just the 1% of the 1%. Oh, that was bad. Really bad.